Alright, so I've recently seen a lot of people being confused about the collapse mutation game mode. So I'll just give a very brief rundown on how this event works. Now, first things first, we will go through the four main things you see over here. Kalina's rewards, factory, collection, and the other world, which is your reward, right? So, what does Kalina's reward actually do? Now, this is basically your campaign mode, basically your side story for this minigame. Yes, there is a side story for this whole thing. Alright, and now we will talk about the factory for a bit. So, what exactly does factory do, right? The whole point of factory was you would want to use this to acquire more T-dolls, and the way you would want to acquire more T-dolls is by producing the T-dolls, but with these materials you see over here. Now the thing is, when this game mode was first released around a year or two ago, they actually had to force you to use the factory system in order to acquire the T-dolls, which you would later use to play more games. So the more games you play, the more materials you collect, and the more materials you collect, the more T-dolls you're able to recruit. The more T-dolls you are able to recruit, you can use them in the next battle. It goes on and on and on and on. So this is basically your gacha system for you to mass produce the dolls lah. Never mind. Alright, for the collection allows you to acquire the stickers for the respective T-dolls. But like I said, this is back when it was first released. Now they brought it, they put those rewards in the exchange store, which is your rewards, right? Your other world. Alright. Exchange store, the rewards, pretty self-explanatory. You can see the items that are on sale over here. And now I will want to talk a bit about the gameplay, so I will start a match first. Now I will give a brief rundown on some of the collectibles in game. So first things first, you see these stars over here. These are actually the currencies you would need to collect in order to purchase the T-dolls. And the blue crystals would restore your shield, the cake will restore your health, the magnet picks up all of the items from the game. Pretty self-explanatory. And now we're already at the chest store, so I'll give a brief rundown on how this system works. First things first, let's talk about the T-dolls you can see in the purchase list over here. Now you have an assist echelon and a backup. Now essentially what this assist echelon does is that you are able to select a few characters, a few T-dolls, like I just purchased M1 Garan here. And these echelons basically give you special attributes that are actually passive in nature, so you don't have to press a skill button in order to activate them, but you would want to actually acquire T-dolls that have the same attribute support and the fetters. So first things first, I'll talk about the fetters because attribute supports are a different thing entirely. Now, for most characters, right, they would have a weapon type and then one of their other attributes, right? For example, right, M1 Garan here utilizes the power attribute, right? So M1 Garan, being an auto rifle, has her own attributes for this specific weapon type, right? Now each weapon type has their own attribute, has their own stats and their own special abilities, and this special power over here is a separate passive skill, right? So you would want to match between you would want to match as many of the characters with the same attributes as possible in order to acquire the attributes or even enhance the the attribute stats, right? So I will give you an example. I will try to find a power type character, and as you can see we have PP20. I'll purchase her. So now you can see that the power has turned from gray into dark gray, right? So according to the power attribute, which you can look over here, by the way, you can also see the T dolls that uses this specific attribute. So each attribute has a different ability, and therefore a different play style. So for instance, you could see here pure power. When you're having two dolls of the same type, it will increase your trajectory by 1, which basically means the amount of bullets you fire per shot. Your bullet damage is increased by 10%, and knockback against enemies for an extra 10%. So the more characters you collect of the same attribute, the higher the stats of these the attributes that it gives you. So at the maximum level, which when you collect 8 of these T dolls, as you can see over here, you will fire an extra 3 bullets. So you essentially fire 4 bullets. You have a 30% damage increment and a 30% knockback capability. So you would want to mix and match between these different characters so that you get the best attributes you want. So for beginners, I would usually prefer if you go for Star, Chariot and Moon initially, because I think that rate of fire is a lot more important compared to damage, because you would want to eliminate the bosses within a short period of time. I don't think damage will be able to help with that. I tried it, and the rate of fire attribute is actually able to kill a lot faster than just pure damage. Second thing I want to talk about, backup, right? For this backup, essentially they just allow you to place the T dolls wherever you want. Now the next thing I want to talk about is essentially the fetters, right? No, not the fetters, the attribute support. Now if you can see here, I already opened PP 2000. So if you look at this here, she has a +1 damage and +40 shield. Now if you see this attribute support over here, it says 2, 3 and 60, 80. So what exactly does this mean, right? So if you collect 3 dolls of the same tier, you are able to level up the T doll specifically into a higher tier. So I will give you a demonstration of this. Let's see if we can try to upgrade PP 2000, and actually that's pretty good. So we just need to find one more. Never mind, we don't need to upgrade PP 2000. We already have F 2000 here. So you can see the increment of the star. As you can see over here, it goes up to tier 2 essentially. So for F2000, her headshot capability is +3% at the base level, and fire range is increased by 200. I don't know what 200 would mean, but once we acquire this doll, it will automatically tier up, right? Now once you tier up to tier 2, you would need to collect another 3 T dolls in order to upgrade to another tier 2, and then you would have to acquire another 3 T dolls in order to acquire another tier 2, and then those 3 tier 2s will come together to form a tier 3. Now a tier 3 T doll is the highest you could acquire in game. So my suggestion is that you want to use the backup slots just to place the T dolls that you want to upgrade eventually, and you would want to place them in the backup so that you can use the other T dolls, right? But once you want to upgrade your first few T dolls, you can just come from the backup over here and you would combine them together to upgrade to tier 3. Okay, and as we can see over here, F2000's attribute support is upgraded from 3% to 4% for her headshot, and her fire range is increased from 200 to 300 meters. I hope it's meters. Right. The next thing I want to talk about is actually the refresh rate. So as you can see here, right, the refresh rate, you can press this button to refresh. I already demonstrated that earlier. And as you go through the latter stages, the chances to get the 2 stars, the 3 stars, 4 stars will slowly decrease, right? So let's just call these common, like rare, epic, and legendary, mythic, right? So as you refresh more and as you go through the latter stages, your refresh rate will increase for the rarer characters and will decrease for the low tier characters until it gets to a point where the refresh rate becomes 0% for the common characters, which is a good thing, right? Because you would want to acquire more legendary and mythic tier characters, these two over here, at the later stages, right? Because at that point you wouldn't really matter about the initial feathers, right? You would want to try to get the better stats instead while trying to balance the feathers that you already have. And last but not least, the last two buttons I want to talk about is you can basically lock the chest store. So if you find a character that you want to use but you don't have enough of the tokens to acquire it, you can just lock it so that it will keep the same T dolls eventually when you acquire more of the tokens. And this is basically leveling up your EXP. So the higher your level, the more shield you have, and the more echelon dolls you are able to store in a team, and more backups you are able to store. I will continue for the fairy store after this. So another thing I'd also like to mention right before this is, if you purchase a T doll and you think that the T doll is underwhelming, you can just drag down or drag up in order to sell them and reacquire the tokens that you already spent on the T doll. Alright, now we get to the fairy section. Now this is essentially the same thing as the normal chest store, right? You have your purchase list, you have your fairy attributes, except this time you would only want to focus on one particular fairy at a time because they don't have the feathers attributes like this one. So you can just choose whichever fairies you think suits best for you. And of course we have the refresh button, the lock button in case you want to find a specific T doll you want, and of course the EXP button, right? So I will use the fairies that I do use the most. So I would usually go for warrior fairy for extra rate of fire, combo fairy for extra mag capacity, and bombardment fairy just for the AoE damage, right?